Hello everyone and welcome to RHINO time. It's been a long time coming and we've got sponsors to thank, we've got you to thank for turning up. We're live on Vimeo, YouTube as a live stream, and you're going to be able to download it and record it later on, download the recording later on as well. My name's David Hyner and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh no, it's a little fat bloke from Birmingham with a really bad haircut. You're right, I'm a little fat bloke from Birmingham with a really bad haircut. Get over it, I've had to. Because when you go through life looking like Kung Fu Panda and sounding like a Peaky Blinder, people are going to judge you and make assumptions about you. Now, that's unfair until people get to know me. But you know what? People will judge and make assumptions about you all the time. And you as a generation of teenagers right here, right now, more negative assumptions are being made about your generation than any other in history. I think that's unfair. You see, people will judge you and say, do you know what? You've got all the resources, all the technology. You're very intelligent as a generation. You're good looking, some of you. And you're capable of loving the planet and your fellow human being in a way combined never seen before in a generation. And you, more than any other, should change the world forever in a positive way. However, there's a downside. The downside is you might not change the world. Not because you're not good enough, because you are. Not because you're not clever enough, because you are. Not because you're not good looking, because you are, even the lads. The reason that you as a generation might not change the world forever for better is only because you desire to be liked rather than respected. You're more afraid of what your friends and peers think of you than you are dare trying to find out how good you can be and risk failure. You are the selfie generation. You'll take a picture of yourself, upload it to YouTube or Facebook, going, aren't I beautiful? Only then for an hour later to be crying in a corner because nobody loves you. I need you to get over that. Because if you keep trying to be liked rather than respected, all you'll ever have is a shallow life. When you do things by your thoughts, your actions, your behaviours and your language that earns you respect, you will achieve more. Let me explain. You're already better than me. Because I'll be honest with you, up until the age of 30, you're looking at someone who strived for and achieved nothing at all, really, of any significance. My only real success was finding a woman crazy enough to love me and marry me. That was it. However, I woke up on my 30th birthday and I realised that it was me holding myself back. I was too busy believing other people, what they were saying about me, saying to me, how they were judging me, making assumptions about me. Dave, you can't do this. Dave, you're not good enough. Dave, you're not... And I was just going, okay. I was just believing them because I was immature and I was a coward. You see, that's not a good thing to admit to, is it? But I was immature, I was the class clown, and I was a bit of a coward. I was afraid of having a go at stuff in case my friends laughed at me. A bit like your generation can at times. What I want you to do is do what I did after my 30th birthday, which is start finding out what's true and stop working with assumptions. Because it's bad enough that other people out there should make assumptions about you. That's terrible. It's bad when we make assumptions about other people. That's not good. But the worst thing in the world is when we make negative assumptions about ourselves. Now, a little assumptions exercise, just to kick off. I'm going to tell you 3 things about me. I always start a workshop or a talk like this. 3 things. 2 of these things will be true on my boy's life. 1 of these things will be a lie. And I'm not going to trick you by having done all of them or none of them. 1 of these things will be a lie, 2 of them will be true. I'll explain what they are, and then you can guess which one is the lie. Now, because we haven't got a chat stream or I'm not in front of you live, I just want you to think about which one of the 3 do you think is the lie? Is the lie number 1? I have walked 500 kilometers along the Great Wall of China. Is the lie number 2. On 5 occasions, I've done a skydive from over 10,000 feet. Once dressed as a Teletubby, raising money for charity. Or is the lie number 3? On 5 occasions, I have got into a huge aquarium full of dangerous sharks without a cage to protect me. So is the lie number 1, walking along the Great Wall of China? Is the lie number 2, skydive dressed as a Teletubby? Or is the lie number 3, swimming with sharks without a cage? Now, most people, when I present this live, and I've presented this to over 1 million people in the last 20 years, 800,000 plus of them young adults like you. And virtually everyone says it's number 1 and number 3. Typically, they say, Dave, the lie is you haven't walked 500k along the Great Wall. Or they think, the lie is you don't swim with sharks. The lie is skydiving. I've never done it. Why on earth would you do that? The truth is that I have swum with sharks and I have walked along parts of the Great Wall of China. You see, it's very easy to get assumptions wrong. And typically, only a handful of the many tens of thousands of you on this call today would have got it right. And yet, I wonder, for all of the negative assumptions that we tell ourselves, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm not good enough, not clever enough, I don't care, I'm not bothered. What if for all that rubbish we tell ourselves, only a handful of those things are actually true? What if we were to find out what's true, and I guarantee 2 things. 1, you will still fail occasionally, because that's life. 2, you will find out that you are better than you think you are. You will achieve things that at the moment right now, you don't comprehend that you're capable of achieving. And I'm living proof, because at the age of 30, I woke up. I started raising money for charity. I started growing businesses. I'm an multiple Amazon #1 subject author. I've raised in excess of £750,000 for charity in my spare time, breaking 4 charities' fundraising records in the process. Numerous Amazon #1s, businesses, a world-renowned international professional speaker. I could go on. The thing is this, I don't say it to impress you. As my friend Nigel says, I say it to impress upon you. If you wake up today and not at the age of 30, you are capable of out-achieving me 10 to 1. Come on. So that's a bit confrontational for a motivational speaker. Motivational speakers are normally tall, slim, good-looking, shiny suits, matching tie and cufflinks and pointy fingers and white teeth. Ching! What they normally do is go, hey, you work as hard as me and you too can achieve. And then they go. They don't tell you how. This session, it's all about the how. This is called RHINO time, and it's called RHINO time for a good reason. It's because we, both today and on the 17th, have got great speakers for you. Real top-achieving speakers to blow your mind, to give you the inspiration and the well-being and the motivation to take action on your goals. But in order for that to happen, you've got to start finding out what's true and stop making assumptions. Let's kick off by telling you about how some successful people go about thinking and behaving differently to the rest of us. Now, we're filming this at a time where the schools are just about to go back after the COVID lockdown. It's understandable that your staff, your parents, and you as students are a little bit afraid about what it's all going to be like. Some of you, the older ones, are going, well, what's the point of studying because they're not going to do the exams this year? Here's the thing. I want you to set your standards, a standard that you will not fall below. And if your standard is whatever, then, well, one day when I'm going through the drive-through, serve me an extra large meal, eh? Or if you've got bigger goals, maybe you want to go to university. Maybe you want to start a business. Maybe you want to be a sporting champion. Maybe you want to be a best-selling author. Maybe you want to be a midwife, a teacher, an engineer, an architect, an accountant, a doctor. It doesn't matter what you want. The question is, if your standards are whatever, and why should I bother, then you will not, repeat, you will not achieve that goal. So what we've got for you is how to set and achieve goals based upon top achiever thinking. How do I know what a top achiever thinks like? It's because in my spare time, I've got a weird hobby. Don't worry, it's clean and legal. My weird hobby is traveling around the world, interviewing really successful men and women. I call them top achievers, yeah? And top achievers from world champions of sport, Olympic gold medalists, world record holders, millionaires, billionaires, captains of industry, scientists, inventors, academics, entertainers, authors, rock stars, even one politician, just one. And 258 top achievers later, I have found out how they set and achieve goals. And we're going to start with something that all of us can do. All of us can do. And it's called the third of 1% rule. Third of 1% rule equates to you and me and everybody for just 5 to 10 minutes a day being the best you can be, rather than the whatever, not bothered, don't care you. Because all of us have got what I call a cow and a rhino persona. Let me explain. There are two types of animal in this world. There are cows and there are rhinos. And it comes from a book by a guy called Scott Alexander. He's from California, and in 1980 he wrote this book called Rhinoceros Success. It went on to be a multi-million selling book. And in the book he talks about cows and rhinos. The world of positive psychology has since proved what he wrote in the book to be true. The theory is this. About 97% of the population behave like cows. What do I mean by that? They hang around with the same group of people all the time, so they feel safe and comfortable. I wonder how many of you, if you're honest, are guilty of not deliberately not hanging around with new people, getting new associations and friendship groups, just hanging around with the same old herd, doing what you've always done and getting what you've always got. Do you know what that's like? Chew grass, moo, milky milky. Yeah, I did just say that. Chew grass, milky milky. Cows do the same thing they've always done, get the same results. Cows look out over the fence and go, I want that, I want to be somebody. I've got goals, dreams, but I'm a cow. And so they end up not having a go in case their friends in the herd don't like them. They can't get over the fence. They just get milked. Then there are 3% of the population who behave like rhinos. A rhinoceros, and I want you to say this out loud. If a rhinoceros sees what it wants, what does it do? Go get it. It charges. Would you agree? Rhinoceros, I want that, haven't it? Poof. You never see a student going, oh, I'm going to study for my exams. I'll start in 3 months. No. A rhinoceros goes, revision, poof, starting now. I want you to be a little bit more rhinoceros and a bit less cow. The reason I'm saying this is because the truth is that you're not 97% of the time a cow. We are capable of being rhinoceros 97% of the time. I'm not one of these daydreamers who says, oh, all you got to do is think positive and everything's brilliant. No, that's not real. I'm from Birmingham. Let's talk reality. The reality is that 3% of the time, we're going to have bad days. Bad things are going to happen. We're going to fail. People aren't going to like us. Things will go wrong. Would you agree? That's life. The truth is that if you applied yourself 97% of the time, you could be charging at stuff and achieving big. So why on earth would we deliberately sabotage ourselves by going, that'll do, or I'm not good enough, or I don't care, whatever, not bothered? By the way, here's some bad news. If you're the type of student, member of staff, or parent who says things like, not bothered, don't care, whatever, you're actually afraid. Awkward, eh? You're afraid. You're afraid of having a go in case you fail or your friends don't laugh in case they laugh at you. The truth is that we're always, and only ever going to get things wrong. But you're all alive. And yet in your lives, today even, I bet some of you have failed, stumbled, tripped, fallen, had an accident, got something wrong. That's life. It doesn't kill us. We're all alive. We're all alive. We woke up, as my friend Richard says, woke up and we're pink. It's a good day. You know what I'm saying? So it's important to remember that whether you set normal goals or massive goals, that we're going to get stuff wrong. Here's the good news. When you go RHINO, you also achieve big. So why wouldn't we? Why on earth would we set realistic and achievable goals when we're capable of so much more? Back to this 30% rule, 5 to 10 minutes a day. I want you to find something that you need to go RHINO on. This could be a career choice, a university choice. It could be your A-levels or your GCSEs or your SATs. It could be anything at all. It could be a sport, a hobby, an interest, a business you want to start. What I want you to do is, instead of going, oh, I'll start one day, is I want you for 5 to 10 minutes a day to go rhinoceros. Absolutely go rhinoceros on this goal. And I'm about to show you how. Come with me. I want you to get a piece of paper and a pen. Piece of paper and a pen. And what I want you to do is I want you to write a list of all the things you can think of that you would have to do if you're going to achieve your goal. If you're going to achieve your goal. I've written some things on here that I always write down when I'm working on a big goal, a massive goal. Feel free to use any of these, but I want you to consider your goal. Do you want to be a sporting champion? Do you want to be a teacher, a midwife, a nurse? Do you want to be an architect, a doctor? What is it you want? Maybe if you haven't got a big goal yet, it's just, I want to do great in my next set of exams, assessments, or degree, A-levels, GCSEs, or SATs. What is your big goal? And I want you to write down all the things that you can think of that you've got to do or has got to happen if you're going to achieve your goal. Write them down. Then, I want you to get ideally a different coloured pen, but it doesn't matter if it's not. And I want you to prioritise this list. By prioritising, I mean I want you to put a number 1 next to the thing on here that you think on your list is the most important or mission critical for your success. So for me, number one is why. You've got to have a reason why you want to achieve your goal that is bigger than your fear of failure. Okay? For me, number 2 is look into a top achiever and get a mentor at the very highest level. Number 3 is find out from these people what it is you don't know or understand at the moment. So number 1 is have a reason why you must achieve that is bigger than your fear of failure. Number 2 is look into someone, get yourself a mentor. Number 3, find out what you don't know about this goal. Number 4, I'm putting it in perfect order just for ease, is have a plan. Have a plan. And I'm going to show you how to do your plan in a triangle or a pyramid. I'll show you those in a minute. Next is you need to improve your attitude, start saying yes to opportunities, actually start doing something. I'll put number 5 as the third of 1%. 5 to 10 minutes a day, do something that takes you closer to the goal. Take consistent action. Number 6, commit. Tell everybody that you're going to do this goal. Tell your friends, your family, your teachers. Tell yourself. Next is make it fun. If it's boring, if it's dull, or if it's really hard all the time, you're not really going to achieve your goal. You're going to struggle. So make it as much fun as you can. And then we'll put, I don't know, number 8 as attitude, number 9 say yes, and number 10 as start. Do something. Then what we do. You've written a list. Hopefully you've got different things on your list as well. You've prioritised the list. And then, in the words of Blue Peter, here's one I made earlier. You draw a dirty great big triangle, or as I call it, the pyramid, and you put the pyramid on a huge piece of paper. You fill the page from top to bottom with a huge triangle. If you've got 5 things on your list, you draw a pyramid with 10 blocks in. If you've got 100 things on your list, you draw a pyramid with 200 blocks in. Twice as many blocks as you have things on your list. I'll tell you why in a moment. So, take the coat off for this one. You then populate your pyramid from the bottom up, starting at the bottom rows and blocks with the most important things. So you can see here that I have put number 1 is the why. You've got to have a reason why you must achieve that is bigger than your goal. Now, before I go any further, let me show you something. At the age of 30, I decided to set a big goal for the first time in my life. I'd recently just lost my mother to cancer, very, very suddenly. And I promised her that in her name, I am going to do a significant event in her honour. The only problem is I was scared and I didn't know how to set a goal. When all the top achievers I was interviewing started saying, Dave, set massive goals, and they showed me this stuff, I went to cancer research and I said, I want to raise a lot of money in one event because I'm setting a massive goal. And they literally laughed me out of the room. Now, I don't know about you. Some people are motivated by good stuff. Some people are motivated by negative stuff. I'm motivated when I want to do something and someone tells me I can't. Any of you like that? I walked out the room and they laughed me out the room and said it couldn't be done and it was impossible, but they didn't know that my reason why I needed to succeed, my mother and her memory, was bigger than my fear and insecurity. So I took action. I went RHINO. This is the original triangle that I did back in the day. We did not raise £50,000. We raised over £280,000. We smashed it. In the following 10 years, my friend Melvin and I travelled the world having adventures of a lifetime. We went to Peru, China, Africa. We walked barefoot across hot coals. We swam with sharks. We did zip lines off office buildings, with permission, of course. But we did tons of stuff and we raised thousands and thousands of pounds for charity. I've also used these triangles to write best-selling books, start businesses, run projects. We've had thousands of students use this and memory techniques to achieve going up by 1 to 4 grades inside 4 months. Come on, try it, guys. If you're thinking, well, of course, Dave, you're 54 years of age, you're a middle-aged bloke, why are you talking to us? Why don't you show us something a young person's done? Okay. Here is a triangle from an 11-year-old schoolgirl who used this triangle to start her own business. 10 years later, she'd made so much money that she did not leave university £50,000 in debt. She left with cash in the bank, a brand new car and a 3-bedroomed house, paid for outright. Do you know what I call that? Cash in the bank. So I could keep you all day with students who have used these triangles to achieve remarkable things. Question is, what are you going to use it for? This is what I want you to do. Find a reason why you must achieve. When you've got that, you take your pen and you either cross it off or hold on. Some people actually like to block it off. A bit like Tetris, right? The next thing, when you've gone and found someone to look into, not up to. What do I mean by that? That is a quote from a gold medal 400 metres relay runner called Chris Akabusi. He was a legend in British athletics. When I interviewed him, I said, Chris, what's the one thing you do differently to everyone else that makes you so much more effective? What he said was, Dave, don't look up to people. He said, if they're that well, unless they're really tall, you know what I'm saying? But he says, don't look up to people. If they're that good at the thing you want to do, look into them. And I went, sounds good, I'm from Birmingham, what does that mean? He says, Dave, if they're that good, track them down, hunt them, stalk them, go through their bins, make crank phone calls, hang outside the house late at night looking through the curtains going, here's Johnny. Don't do that, by the way. If you do that, say, Superman told you to do it, not me. But don't do it. But I want you to track down a top achiever who is amazing at the thing you want to be good at and ask them to mentor you. Look into them. And if you're saying, but Dave, I haven't got a big goal, what subject are you struggling with? What subject are you struggling with right now that you're saying, Dave, I can't do it, I'm scared, I don't understand it? How about, instead of being scared of it and not understanding it, you do the third of 1% rule. 5 to 10 minutes a day, you, knowing that it's going to be really difficult for the first 2 or 3 days, and you'll fail and get it wrong, and you'll feel really bad, but you're not going to go in. Why? Because you're going, RHINO, is you are going to smash it for 10 days for 5 to 10 minutes a day. At the end of it, you'll own it. Do you know what I'm saying? True story. A little young lad in primary school called Matthew used to have panic attacks every time maths was even mentioned in the classroom. Whenever he did long multiplication, he had to leave the room. He was that scared. I took him to one side, and he was like a mini-me. He was like that high, little red, rosy, chubby cheeks, and a cool haircut. Not like me. And I said, what's the problem, Matthew? He says, I don't get it. It scares me. I says, will you do something for me? Are you a cow or a rhino? And he went, RHINO, Dave. I went, not as deep as that, because he was like 9, right? But he went, RHINO, Dave. I went, okay, do something for me, yeah? What I want, could you give me 5 to 10 minutes every day for 10 days? And he went, yeah. I went, would you be prepared to go RHINO for 5 to 10 days for just 5 to 10 minutes? He went, yeah. I says, doing long multiplication. He went, no. I went, He went, I get it. And he did struggle for the first couple of days. But 10 days later, him and the head teacher sat in the head teacher's office. He smashed 10 long multiplication questions. And him and the head teacher looked down the camera and went, RHINO. My friends, what is it you could do in 10 days, 5 to 10 minutes a day? Smash the thing you're afraid of. Overcome the fear. Find out what's true. Find out what it is you are capable of instead of the assumption that you can't. When you've found someone to look into, cross it off or shade it in. From these top achievers, find out what it is you don't know. Find out what it is you don't understand, and instead of being scared of it, get excited, because that's how you're going to get your results up. Let me explain. How many of you have ever sat down to revise or study for a test, but you've gone over things you already know just to feel good about yourself? That used to be me. I always put off or never did the stuff that scared me or I didn't understand. And yet, think about it. How are you going to get your grades up? Going over stuff you already know or learning new stuff? So, find out what you don't know and put it all into a plan. Remember, the most important things in the bottom rows and blocks, because these are your foundations. Have a plan. Go absolute RHINO for 5 to 10 minutes a day. Third of 1%, just 5 to 10 minutes, increase your productivity by a third of 1%. I've had 2 maths professors work this out. Both of them agree. Over a course of a year, if you only give yourself 5 to 10 minutes a day, being the best that you can be, your productivity and performance and results go up by in excess of 112%. Is there anybody here who wants to be a sportsman, work in banking, anything to do with money, or wants to study? Would you be prepared 5 to 10 minutes a day for a 112% return on your investment of time and energy? Come on. The next thing is, what does that look like? Hey, it's not a meteor, it's a comet. Why? Because you must publicly commit to your goal. Thank you. I'm here all week. You must publicly commit to your goal. I want you to not hide. I want you to tell everybody, this is what I'm going to have a go at. This is what I'm doing, so that they can hold you accountable and support you. You will find out who your friends are very, very quickly. Last thing on here is make it so much fun, you can't wait to take action. Build in fun, laughter, rewards for yourself if that's how you're motivated. And if you've got a massive pyramid and it's half full of all the things you've got to get done, if you can look at each block and say to yourself, each block is realistic and achievable, you can set as big a goal as you want. Remember, at the age of 30, I'd achieved nothing at all. Everything I've had the privilege of doing since the age of 30 has just been down to having really big goals, knowing why I want to achieve them, and setting realistic and achievable steps to the massive goal. We have had students your age use this pyramid, and other than my wife and son, the thing I'm most proud of in my life is nothing I've done. It's what people like you have done using this triangle. We have had students become best-selling authors, millionaires in business before they've even left education, sales rock stars, superstars, academic superstars. Question is, what are you going to use it for? Or will tomorrow just be the same as today? Chew grass, moo, milky milky. Or have you committed to go a little bit RHINO time? Let me share with you a metaphor. You see, the point is this. I could show you how to set and achieve a really big goal. But if you don't use it, well, do you know, every single day you will enter school, college, university with an empty head. Your teachers and people like me, they will try and fill your head with new knowledge, skills, and information. And if you use that information, if you do a pyramid, if you have a reason why, get a top achiever mentor, find out what you don't know, put it in a plan, go RHINO for 5 to 10 minutes a day, publicly commit and make it fun, I guarantee 2 things. 1, occasionally you'll stumble or fail or get it wrong, but 2, you will achieve big. The second thing is that if you don't use it, if you don't do any of this, well, that would just be like walking around with an empty head. It doesn't matter what you do, you won't be able to fight it. It's about what you do, not what you say, not what you dream about. It's what you do. That's what matters. If you don't take action, that would be like punching yourself in the face repeatedly for no reason whatsoever. Don't do it. Stop making assumptions and start finding out what's true. Why don't you start writing a book? Oh, David, it's too big a job. Really? Here's just 4 of my subject number 1 books. Why? 1 page a day, this time next year, could you write 1 page a day? Of course you can. This time next year, 1 page a day, that's a 365-page book. That's bigger than any book I've written. What are you going to do? Why don't you just step up and have a go? Have a go at a triangle. Set yourself a big, fat, hairy goal. I want you to take personal responsibility. I want you to take personal responsibility for your well-being, your happiness, and your success. I don't want you to let anybody tell you what it is you are capable of. I want you to find out the truth. Stop trying to be liked, remember that. Stop trying to be liked and instead do things that earn you respect. Do you know some things that would really freak people out? All right? Do you want to know how to freak your parents out? Go on. Tidy your room before they tell you to. Oh, they won't know what to do. You want to know how to freak your teachers out? Deliver every homework assignment on time, complete. Oh my days, watch them freak. Why don't you, if you're the type of person who would normally hang out on a street corner, smoking cigarettes, drinking cider with your hood up and doing naughty stuff, why don't you change your reputation by you and your so-called friends doing good things? Why don't you help the little old lady down the road with the shopping or help the old guy up the road with walking his dog? Why don't you offer to help, volunteer, step up, have a go, find out who you really are and earn respect instead of trying to be liked and fit in? Why? Because when you do good things, your brain releases all the happy chemicals into the bloodstream. Honestly, it's better than alcohol or any drugs you could take. It is the natural body high. It releases endorphins, dopamine, adrenaline, serotonin, noradrenaline, pumping oxygen around the bloodstream, making you feel epic. But if you don't do something to make that happen, know what I'm saying? So do good things. It releases endorphins. Next thing is breathe. Well, you're going to say, yeah, Dave, I breathe, all right. Yeah, we do breathe. But if you're feeling stressed, afraid, remember, it's okay to be afraid. It is not okay to be so scared that you don't take action. If you're afraid or a bit nervous or apprehensive, try this, right? And I want you all to sit up straight in your chair, unless you're standing like me, in which case you sit or stand still. Take a long, deep breath in. Fill your lungs to capacity. Feel the gaps between your rib cage expanding as you flex the intercostal muscles between the rib cage. Hold it for 2 seconds and breathe out. I want you to keep taking long breaths in. Hold it for 2 seconds, and as you breathe out, relax. Now what I want you to do is, if you've got any tension in your body, anywhere where you're feeling particularly stressed, for me, it's always about my neck and shoulder. Try this, right? If you're feeling a bit scared even, it doesn't even have to be physical, it can be emotional. If you're a bit scared about anything at all, nervous about going back to school after lockdown, anything at all, try this. Deep breath in, hold it, and ask yourself, could I let that go? And if you've just said yes, physically let go of that feeling. Allow your muscles to relax. Do something to take control. Try deep breathing. You know, the last thing I want to share with you today, it's a true story. True story. Everything I've shared with you so far has come from my research or my own personal experience, or those of people like yourself that I've worked with or helped along the way. But as we come back to reality, oops, there goes gravity. No, sorry, bit of M&M there just for that. But as we come back to reality after lockdown, it's understandable that all of us are going to be nervous and apprehensive. And we can try, or we can do it. Notice the difference. We can try, or we can do it. Not doing it, not an option, because then you become the average people. No one wants to be average. You should run from average. Stop trying to be beige, all right? Stand out, go for it. What I want you to consider is this. Are you in the park or are you on the bus? Let me explain. True story. When I was a teenager, I used to be in a band, and we were bad. And I don't mean we were bad. I mean, we were bad. We were terrible. We were shocking. And there were 4 of us in this band. There was Mark. He was the good-looking one. He was the lead singer and the rhythm guitarist. There was Paul on lead guitar. There was Andy on the drums. And my mate Andy, one of my best friends in the whole world, Andy could play the drums, rhythm guitar, lead guitar. He could sing, he could song. He had more musical talent in his little fingernail than Ed Sheeran's got in his whole body, you know what I'm saying? Andy was uber talented. And this lad used to come and watch us occasionally. I only met him about 5 times. But he used to come and watch us. And his name was John Brooks. John Brooks. And Johnny Brooks, he was a nice lad. And he could just about play the drums. And he used to go, I'm going to be a rock star. And my mate Andy, who was an awesome drummer, would go, I'm going to be the rock star. And Johnny Brooks would go, no, I'm going to be the rock star. And Andy would go, no, mate, you're going to be a dustman. I'm going to be the rock star. Andy, he became an electrician. He was a good one. He worked very hard, did really well for himself. Nice one. But he was a frustrated rock star. When we, at weekends and school holidays, were in the park kicking a ball around, we always wondered why John Brooks never came and played football. We later found out. It's because when we were in the park, Johnny Brooks got on the bus. Weekends, school holidays, he would catch the bus into Birmingham city centre. He would hang out one of the big recording and rehearsal rooms in Birmingham, where the big bands at the time used to rehearse for their world tours and recording albums. He got in with a rock band who was big in Europe at the time, from Wolverhampton. They were called Magnum, and not the ice cream. Ask your parents. And he got in with this band. And they said, what are you doing when you finish school? He went, dunno, probably signing on the dole. And he went, they said to him, do you want to come on tour with us? We need stage crew. And he went, yeah. So he started travelling the world with this band as stage crew. He met a couple of lads from up north and they started a little band. That little band went on to be the best-selling album band across the whole of Europe in the 1980s. The band was called the Charlatans. Johnny Brooks was his drummer. Sadly, Johnny passed away about 3 years ago, and I didn't know him well. I only met him about 5 times. But when we were in the park, he got on the bus. Are you prepared to do something that nobody else believes in to follow your goal? Do you have a reason why? Johnny wanted to be the rock star. Andy dreamt about it. Andy to this day is still mega talented, but John was the rock star. What is it you're going to do? I wonder what it is you're going to do. Let me finish this first session by introducing what's going to happen next. You see, we have got 4 awesome speakers for you today. And then on the 17th of March, we've got another 4 great speakers for you, plus a little bit more RHINO time from me. But what's going to happen is we've got 4 speakers, 15 minutes each, and what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce them to you, but before I do, I've got to say a few thank yous to people, right? Just before I introduce our first speakers. The people who have made all this happen, and by the way, guys, I think you might be part of a record-breaking event here, because if everyone who was going to come on has come on this call, it could be a huge event, this. And it's been made possible by Q3 in Langley, Sascal, Higher Horizons Plus, the City Learning Trust, Aspire Higher in Northampton, my company, Stretch Development, and the head teacher of this school where we are today, Trentham Academy, Mr. Mike Whittingham. These people have all come together to give you these speakers. I can promise you something. There has not been another event in British history that has had the quality of people we've got lined up for you, both today and in 2 weeks' time. So I want you to grab this opportunity and go RHINO. Because if you don't, that would be like walking around with an empty head. So, without much further ado, I'm going to introduce your speakers and then hand over to the first speaker. Last of all, we'll have Paul McGee. He's just written a best-selling book called Yes, aimed at you guys, teenagers. Teachers, you might know him as the global best-selling author of SUMO, Shut Up and Move On, Paul McGee. You've got him, last of all. Awesome. First up, we're going to have Claire Young. Claire Young was a finalist in one of the first apprentices with Lord Sugar. She's absolutely awesome. She's an inspiring female entrepreneur, and she runs an organisation called School Speakers, which gets people like me into schools like yours. She's awesome. Then we've got Ben Dyer. Ben Dyer is a local lad from around here in the Midlands who he was a bit like me, sort of, okay, average at best as a kid growing up, but he had dreams, goals and ambitions. He took action, and he now runs Enterprise Days through the Inspirational Learning Group, and it's the biggest company of its kind in the country. The guy is awesome. Then we've got Sue Evans. Sue Evans is an authority on well-being and stress prevention, so you guys better pay attention to her. First up though, we've got Claire Young. Please give it up, whoop, holler, stomp, whoop like Americans, and welcome Claire Young.
Time, and now we're moving on to being a Rottweiler. However, my name is Claire Young. Some of you might recognise me from taking part in The Apprentice a few years ago, that well-known TV show on BBC One. So if you look behind me, you'll see a picture of very famous man, Lord Sugar, Sir Alan as I would call him. In 2008, I beat 40,000 people to reach the final 16 candidates to take part in the show, and it was watched on TV by over 11 million people. Now, life does change when you take part in a reality TV show. Every person knows your name, people know who you are, people talk about you on social media. But I'm going to spend a couple of minutes over the next 15 minutes talking how I went from your seat, being at school, not that many years ago, to now an award-winning businesswoman, working with the government, meeting members of the royal family, and working with a business which I started 10 years ago, working with schools all across the world called School Speakers. I wanted to work for one of the most well-known entrepreneurs in the country, Alan Sugar. The TV show is called The Apprentice, and you learn a skill from somebody who has got a trade. People talk about apprenticeships being a plumber, an electrician. There's over 195 apprenticeship schemes now available for young people, but my apprenticeship was to become an entrepreneur. When I left university, I'd always worked for people, I'd had a job, I'd never been the boss, and I had this little inkling that I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to be the boss, I wanted to be in charge, and I wanted to do something which was new and exciting. So I wanted to apply for The Apprentice and work for Alan Sugar. Now, Alan Sugar, some of you might know how he made his fortune. I'm going to think we're in a school today, we'll have thousands of computers. The reason we all use computers at home is because of this gentleman. He was on a trip to the Far East in the 1970s and he saw computers. Computers were the sizes of fridges. They were huge. They were not made for people like you and I. And Alan Sugar had the idea. This is where all businesses come from. The word entrepreneur, it's a French word, it means creator. So I can't dance, I can't draw, I can't sing, but I'm good at coming up with ideas. Hopefully ideas which are going to make me money. I like making money, and I'm sure lots of you listening today also like money. So Alan Sugar had the idea to take these really big computers, the size of units like fridges, put them into a white box and put them onto a desk, and people like you and I, your parents, your teachers, might use a computer at home. That computer company was called Amstrad, and he sold that company for millions, £800 million years ago, and that was his fortune. All of his companies start with the first three letters, AMS, Alan Michael Sugar. And that's something I really learned from Sir Alan, Lord Sugar, when I worked with him, to keep things simple. People often think to be your own boss, you've got to be the brains of Britain, you've got to be really academic. What you need is a really good idea, and you need to have the right attitude to take a risk to see if that idea works and not to quit, because running a business is difficult. If it was easy, every single person would be doing it. It's not easy, but sometimes the best things in life are the things which are hard work and are not easy. He gave me a nickname. I'm sure some of you have got nicknames. And he said, in the boardroom of The Apprentice, when you go in after you've done a task on the show and you've got to battle it out with the other candidates to save your place, he said she's like a flipping Rottweiler. She's clinging onto the ankles for dear life and she's not letting go. Now, most candidates do one boardroom or two. I did 5. Nobody's beaten me yet. In life, you have got to be a Rottweiler. You've got to be a RHINO, and you've got to charge, and you've got to be strong, and you've got to go for it. But also, when the going gets tough, you cling onto the ankles for dear life, and you do not let go. Because life is up, down, up, down. Sometimes running a business, I have days which are fantastic. Other days, I sit at my desk and think, why am I doing it? Life can be tough, but you do not quit. We all have our can't be bothered moments. We all can be, CBB, can't be bothered. But being tenacious, holding on and not quitting is so important in life. So this has become my USP. And in business, we call that a unique selling point. So every single person has got a unique selling point. As British people, we can sometimes be a little bit shy about what we're good at. So if somebody asks you, what you're good at. You go, oh, I don't know, it's a bit uncomfortable. You have got to be your number one fan, because if you don't promote yourself and you don't know what your unique selling point is, nobody else will know. And in life, when you leave school, you are going to go out there and sell yourself. It is the most important thing which you can do, which you can sell, and nobody else can do it better for you. Not your parents, not your teachers. In an interview for apprenticeships, a job, sixth form, university, you are going to be your number one cheerleader, going out there and promoting how good you are. So a unique selling point could be you're really good at helping people, you're a good team leader, you're good at maths, you're good at presenting, you're good at sport, you've got a part-time job. So if you think about today, this afternoon, just take a couple of minutes to think, what is your unique selling point? Just one, you don't need to have hundreds, one unique selling point. And once you find the one thing in life you are good at, and you match together the career to go with it, there is absolutely no stopping you. People are like rockets. They fly off because they're in their flow. It can take a while sometimes to figure out what you're good at, and sometimes it can take a while to find the job and the career which put the two together. But once you have got those, you are going to be absolute dynamite. Now, watching The Apprentice, my family, when Alan Sugar was calling me a big gob, a chatterbox, a motor mouth, they thought it was quite funny, because when this picture was taken, you will see here, that's me when I'm 3 years old. I'd already developed the look, so to speak. That was me in the boardroom. I didn't say a single word until I was 4 years old. My first memories were in primary school. I was in a special needs school. They thought I was brain damaged. I communicated through screaming and grabbing. And then one day, it was almost like somebody flicked this switch. I didn't start talking in words like those of you who have got brothers and sisters and have seen how young people learn language develop. I started talking in full sentences and literally never shut up. My mum says to this day, if she'd had me first, she would never have had any more children. I used to walk around the house saying, I'm bored, what can we do? Who in here finds it gets bored quite easily? I strive on adventure, I like learning. I love the fact in a business that every day is different. Every day is a school day. You know, learning does not stop when you leave education. And growing up, I had some really strong role models. Now, a role model for me is when we're having those can't be bothered moments, and we all have them. Your parents will have them, your teachers will have them, your head teacher. Everybody will have moments, because we're not machines. We're not freaks of nature who are machines who bounce out of bed every morning. We all get tired, we all get fed up. We all have moments where I say we red flag ourselves when you know that you are just shattered. But who are the people you look up to when you are having those can't be bothered moments and you think, do you know, if I did my little bit of my best, like David was saying, if you did 5 or 10 minutes extra and really went from average to good to better to best, who are the people who are striving you to make you do that? So growing up, I was nicknamed the Rottweiler, but the women behind me were the Queen Bee Rottweilers. Oprah Winfrey, she's been in the press a lot this week and next week because she's the chat show host in America who's interviewed Harry and Meghan. She's possibly the most powerful black woman in the world. She's the richest woman in America. She was once told she was too fat to work in TV and now owns the biggest TV channel in America with about 65 million people watching her shows. She is a phenomenal woman, and I used to watch her shows every night after school thinking, I want to be like Oprah. The lady in the pink, now this is my mum. She is silent but deadly. So she really embodied into me that I would talk, for example, about The Apprentice. I would sit and watch The Apprentice. Does the phone really ring at 5 o'clock in the morning? Are these tasks really difficult? Am I good enough to do it? Could I do it? And she always drilled into me from a young age, you'll never know unless you have a go. Sometimes in life, you've got to do what Nike say, the 3 letters, just do it. Don't just talk about it. If you're going to talk the talk, you've got to be able to walk the walk. And that is the difference between a lot of successful people and not successful people, the people who talk about it and the people who actually do it. The lady at the bottom was my headmistress called Pat Langham, and I am definitely a product of my home with my mum and dad and my school. Now, I went to school in Wakefield, which is about 100 miles from where we are today. And Wakefield is not the cosmopolitan centre of the universe. Possibly the most exciting thing about Wakefield is we are the rhubarb capital of Europe. We are lots of deprivation. We've got we're ex-factory city, we're ex-mining. It's a pretty normal place to be. But Pat Langham, every morning in assembly, she would stand at the front of the school and she would say, you are the best, you are the brightest, and you're going to go out there and succeed. So by the time we left school after sixth form, nobody wanted to do their average. We didn't want average jobs. We didn't want average lifestyles. We wanted to have the absolute best and to always do our best. I'm sure people watching have always had a case where you've done a little bit of work and you've just done it last minute and you've rushed through it. Just step back and think, if you do that extra little bit of effort and do your best, what you can achieve in life. So leaving school, it was really embodied into me that success was for everybody. It doesn't matter where you come from. There are no barriers to success. What size you are, what shape you are, what colour you are, what background you've got. The world is out there and it's there for the taking. So I began my journey. Here's me, my little school photo, and I left school and I went to university. Now I think when you're younger, people are talking to you about your life, where you're going to go, what you're going to do, what's your career, firing questions at you when you just don't have the answers. A good start is to study or do something, a vocational qualification, academics, we're all different, or a job, something you enjoy doing. You are not going to be successful in life if you are not passionate about it. If you wake up every day and you do not want to go to college or sixth form or work, your life is going to suck. You have got to find something you enjoy doing, because going to work, the reality is it's going to be 40 hours a week of your life. It's the biggest part of your life. So I went to university, absolutely loved academia. I like studying. Can I fix things? Have I got any manual dexterity? None. So for me, going to university was the right thing. And I remember being in my last year at university thinking, I'm 21, by the time I'm 30, because 30, probably for those of you who are listening, sounds really old and ancient and like an OAP. I thought, where do I want to be by the time I'm 30? I need a plan. You can have these ideas and you can have these dreams, but if you don't have a plan to make them happen, it's just going to be a dream. So a plan, we all have different wish lists, and something which I often think about is sheep, because when I work with young people sometimes, they behave a bit like sheep. Sheep tend to follow one another. Sheep are the thickest animals of the animal kingdom. The brains are about this big. So what your wish list and what your friend's wish list is going to be different, because we are different people. We're not sheep. We're not all going to be the same clones following each other. So my wish list, I sat at uni and I thought, what would I like to... There we go. What would my wish list be? So I sat there, I thought, I want money. I want money, because money, it means I can go on holidays, I can learn to ski, I want to go on safari. I'd like a nice house, and you need money to buy a house. I'd like to go on adventure, I'd like to travel. I was from Wakefield. It amazes me how many people we use the internet, young people, 7 hours a day, this global gateway through your phones and your iPads, but don't look past your postcode for going to work. So looking about career, I love horses, I love fast cars. I wrote my plan. My plan involved finding a job because I needed money and that employer was going to give me the money. University, I applied not just for one, not two, but 83 jobs. And I was rejected by 76. The first letter came, I thought, rejection. Rejection's going to happen. I'm sure people have been dumped by the boyfriends, by the girlfriends. You've been told your piece of work is not good enough. You've had criticism. It made me the Rottweiler, the tenacity to not quit and keep going. I got a job and I moved to London. So after living in London for 8 years and climbing the career ladder, by really being a sponge, by soaking up information, asking people questions, Do you need any work doing? Can I volunteer for things? Do you like your job? Would you do it again? Ask questions. I remember watching The Apprentice on TV and my mum, JDI, was ringing true. Should I apply? And a 5-minute application literally changed my life. So walking into the doors and walking into the boardroom, this is the boardroom, you can just see my face versus Kevin next door. I am so focused on reaching the final of The Apprentice. He's tired, he's given up, he wants to go home. He's not being a Rottweiler. Now, I'm sure everyone, it's not smooth running. I was once thrown out of the boardroom by Alan Sugar. He said that looking at me made him feel sick. I was disgusting, and to get out of his sight, it was like being in a wind tunnel. He screamed at me. I think he'd had a bad day at the office, and he said, Claire, you need to learn to shut up, get out of my sight, and get back to the house. And I learned an important lesson, well, two. To listen, because we've got 2 ears instead of 1 mouth, and also to take on criticism. So whenever your teachers are saying, you need to do your work, or your parents are saying, get out of bed, or you need to get to school, how have you done your work? They're doing it because they care. I had one of the country's most successful entrepreneurs saying to me, you are an amazing businesswoman, but you need to calm down and you need to listen more. I could have thrown my toys out of the pram and walked out of the show, or what I did was take it on board and went on to reach the final of The Apprentice, where 2 of us, remember 40,000 people had competed, I reached the final 2, but in the last boardroom, something really awful happened. I lost and failed in front of 11 million people. And failure is really, really important in life. You'll never learn unless you actually have a go at doing something new. Imagine how life will be so boring if you never tried anything new. So I failed, but I'd learned a lot. I'd learned about starting a business. I'd worked with Alan Sugar, and I had this amazing opportunity where people knew who I was. I was invited to go start speaking in schools and started my own business. So going into The Apprentice, working for people, I left, even though I did lose and I did fail in front of millions of people, it was the best thing that what happened to me because I started my own business. Sometimes in life, it's not the winning which is the most important thing. It's what you take from a situation and what you use with it. So today, I hope you enjoy the day. I hope you enjoy your talks, that you are going to be RHINO, that you are going to embrace your inner Rottweiler. So that's, my time is up with you. You're now moving on to one of my friends, colleagues. I introduced him to Lord Sugar, Sir Alan, and this is a wonderful gentleman who's going to share his story with you, Mr. Ben Dyer.
I would like to dedicate my talk to a fantastic local teacher, Mr. Jones. So, how did I, myself, and my cousin Mike manage to work with Lord Sugar? How did we manage to persuade him to be at the front of our business? Now, first things first, you can probably tell from my accent, I'm a local lad, Stoke-on-Trent. I know we've got people watching from all over, but we've also got a lot of Stoke-on-Trent schools. So I grew up in Blurton, just down the road from where I'm standing today. So really are a local lad, and went to school at Mere. It certainly wasn't my background that gave me the opportunity to work with Lord Sugar, because I, like many in Stoke-on-Trent, came from a council estate. Times were tough. We had to think on our feet at times growing up. If I wanted to go to the Stoke game, I needed to hustle. I needed to go out there and get an opportunity to go. At 13 years old, I was selling half-time draw tickets at the ground to enable me to go and watch the Stoke City games. And throughout life, though, there was a little thing in me. And I know I also shared that with my cousin who I founded the business with. But that thing was I wanted more. I looked at some of my peers who were going on the foreign holidays and I thought, I want a piece of that. Those that had perhaps nicer houses. And that always stuck with me, despite all the things that we were going through growing up. Great childhood though, I had a fantastic school life, enjoyed it, went to college and then ended up going to university to study a foundation degree in business startup. And that was really the start for me of something that really settled it down, a little bit of desire in my belly that wanted me to run my own business and actually go and work hard. So if you fast forward to 2012, I want you to picture the scene. I was sat in a coffee shop with Michael, my cousin, and we were discussing our lectures that we were having at Staffordshire University. And during them lectures, the screen came on, and it said on the screen that young people didn't have the skills required for the world of work. Those skills, such as teamwork, communication, leadership. As we were watching that on the screen, two gentlemen dressed smartly in suits were agreeing with these statements that were being made. These statements talking about these skills and agreeing that young people didn't have them. And me and Mike, who actually at the time already had a failed business, were sat there debating ourselves. And it was at that time we said, well, why don't we, two lads from Stoke-on-Trent, be the ones that do something about it? So we sat there and thought, well, what could we do? And we decided that we wanted to give opportunities for students across the country to showcase those skills to employers. We want to give students the opportunity to take part in something that was national, something that we would really enjoy taking part in, that would engage them no matter what school background they were from. And we also wanted to create something where there was an ambassador, somebody that would front the programme, somebody that wasn't me or Mike from Stoke-on-Trent and their council estates, but it was somebody that they could inspire to be to. Somebody like Peter Jones, we said, from Dragon's Den, somebody like Theo Baffitis, or somebody like Lord Sugar. And I remember that day. I left the university and ran pretty much straight home. It was a bit like Charlie from the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory films when he has the golden ticket. I went and I thought, who can I tell about this fantastic idea that we've had? And I thought, my granddad. I went into my granddad and said, Luke, this idea is fantastic. And his answer was typical of a lot of people from Stoke, a downtrodden city where at the time we've lost a lot of industry down the years. And my granddad, God rest his soul, turned around and said to me, Ben, you're bankrupt. You've never ran a school programme of any length before, and how on earth are you going to get an ambassador like Lord Sugar or Theo Baffitis or Peter Jones? And I just said, Grandad, I can and I will. And myself and Mike decided that we would go out there to our network, and the lady you just spoke to, Claire Young, was one of the first people we spoke to through her school speakers agency. And we spoke to her about the idea, spoke to her about, could we put this national event on that was going to inspire thousands of students across the country. And we started reaching out to people. We had a no quite quickly after we started from Peter Jones, but the fact that we had a no was a fantastic opportunity for us because we knew that people would be interested and there would be some sort of interest. We then went through to another couple of people, Theo Baffitis from Dragon's Den. He spoke to us through his marketing team. And again, unfortunately, it was a no, but it was one step closer to that yes. And then September came, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I actually got a text from Claire, we'd put some more feelers out, and Claire had helped us, and we managed to persuade Lord Sugar to actually front the programme. And it was a fantastic achievement. Bear in mind, we are two lads from Stoke-on-Trent. We're from the council estates, and not only just a month after being discharged from bankruptcy had we persuaded Lord Sugar, one of the biggest business people in the UK, and if not Europe, to be the front of our new programme that we were going to launch in schools. But there was one problem. We couldn't even open bank accounts. We didn't have an office. We didn't have a programme. We had no team. We had no start-up funding. So if you've ever been in a situation where you think it's a bit, the odds are against you, but we carried on. We ploughed through. And by that Christmas, we managed to get a business start-up loan from the government to give Lord Sugar a little bit of a deposit money to show that we were interested and we were definitely going to turn up and run this event. And we moved into an office in the January in Butt Lane Community Centre, just on the outskirts of Stoke. And it was £20 a week, traditional start-up story. And we persuaded a few of our colleagues, people that we knew, people that we were friends with, who perhaps had different jobs, but they had some time in the day to come and join us on the journey. And we sat there and we knew that we needed over 50 schools to get involved to make the challenge happen, alongside a few sponsors. And we rang every single school in the country between then and January and March of 2013 to make that happen, and managed to persuade Staffordshire University and the exam board, OCR, to be our main sponsors. Leading up to that event, if you look at the context, we had never even been to London before. So from a social mobility point of view, we didn't even know, we hadn't had a chance to go to London when we were kids. We just never got that opportunity. In fact, for me sins, I'm a Stoke City fan, and the only time I'd actually been to London was to watch Stoke City on the train or on the coach. So to us to put an event on for 700 people in London was the next task that we needed to face around May, June time, when we realised we were going to have enough schools to make it happen. So we went to London, and the day before we turned up at this big theatre called the Troxy Theatre in London, and we'd arranged for Ian Sterling, who is now the voiceover guy on Love Island, to be our host for the event. And I remember sitting there briefing him, and actually not knowing the full agenda myself, it was a daunting task. David Hyner, who's involved today, was actually our speaker, and we had 700 students from across the country coming for this finals event with Lord Sugar. And I remember the feeling when he turned up in his car, the same car that you'd seen on the TV on The Apprentice. And remember the actual, almost the adrenaline going inside me when he turned up. He went to his dressing room, he looked at the programme, and we had other speakers on the stage. And when Lord Sugar came on that stage, the music came on, and he walked on that stage, and I'm not ashamed to say now, he brought a tear to my eye. Because we were two lads from Stoke who'd made this happen. 11,000 students had taken part that year between January and June. And if it wouldn't have been for our can and I will attitude and actually pushing that forward and the help of our team, then that just wouldn't have been able to happen. So we were two lads from Stoke that had proven that we could get something off the ground, push forward and make something that really seemed unbelievable happen. And on that day, from a business point of view, we hadn't created a business. It was about proving it to ourselves and our families that we could actually achieve something. And I remember on that day, a teacher came up to me and Mike and said, "What's next year?" And we hadn't even given it a thought. And our default response was, we're going to set up something that's going to be bigger and better. And to do that, we knew that we needed somebody who had a business that had a product or a service that could be relatable to young people. And we went back to Theo Paphitis and RHINO, and the rest, as you probably know if you research what we actually do now, is history. Since then, we've worked with over 300,000 young people on the National Enterprise Challenge, and we've had the finals at places such as Alton Towers, we've been to Doncaster, and most recently in 2019 we took it to Wembley Stadium. Now, last year, like many, we had a choice to make yet again in the business world. And believe me when I say this, every young person out there watching today, this has been a leveller. The budget's announced today. This COVID-19 situation has been a leveller for businesses. It's going to be a leveller for you. But you've got a choice to make. You can talk about how it's going to affect you, how it's going to continue to affect you for years to come, etc. Or you can actually think to yourself, I can do something from this. I can take this opportunity where everybody's been out of school for the last year, similar to myself, and I'm going to make something. I'm going to have that positive attitude, and I'm going to push forward. And that's exactly what we did in the business last year. We took our we took our business resources online, and we were able to create something that was bigger than actually what it started out as. And we're now actually in even more schools, and this year we're on course to work around 60,000 young people with a mixture of virtual and online. So what's my messaging to you today? No matter what background you're from, that's not your fault. You can't control that at your age. When you're at school age, you can't be in control of the background that you're from. So you've almost got to forget about it. Don't use it as an excuse. You're going to have to you're going to come through and encounter problems in your school life. You're going to encounter problems a little bit later on. Accept them now. If you can accept them now, it's going to give you an added benefit when you do come across these problems, because they're going to happen. Whether it's COVID related or not, you're going to come against issues. So accept them now and be willing to have that attitude to progress forward. I've said it before, I can and I will, or I shan't and I can't, so I can't. If you haven't got that will inside you and you make that excuse that you shan't so you can't, then you're not going to get anywhere. But if you can say I can and I will, then you're going to give yourself every opportunity to succeed. I don't know what the future holds for post-COVID for anybody, but I know that a positive mental attitude is really going to be the game changer for you guys. You need to make sure you get out of bed, like David always says, go RHINO, get out of bed in the morning and absolutely smash the day. Because at the end of the day, you are the ones that have got to go through. You've got to go and get your GCSEs, you've got to go and get your A-levels, hopefully go to university and enter the workplace. And if you can develop those key skills, the skills that our challenge amongst others teach, the communication, leadership, teamwork, you're going to give yourself a fantastic opportunity to do well in whatever you choose to go into. But it's all down to you. So all I'm going to say today, my main message for everybody watching is about this I can and I will attitude. It's the best phrase that anybody's ever given to me, because it is all on you and you've got that choice. Are you going to come out of all of this? Are you going to be the guy that doesn't, or the girl that doesn't want to do anything, going to make excuses, you're going to sit there, or are you going to have that positive attitude that's going to help drive you, your future forward? And a post-pandemic world is going to make you grab every single opportunity that comes your way. So my name's Ben Dyer, I'm from the Inspirational Learning Group, founder of the National Enterprise Challenge, and I'm going to introduce you to our next speaker, which I'm going to read because I want to make sure I get this perfectly well and right. So our next speaker is Sue Evans. Sue will share her fast-acting, long-lasting skills for improving performance through better mental well-being, helping people to stay on top form, even through challenges and uncertainty. Today she's sharing 2 straightforward ways that everybody can get unstuck and stay on top form more easily. Thank you very much.
You know those mornings when the alarm goes off and the first thought in your head is, no, it can't be time already. Do I have to get up? You lie there all warm and snuggled. You ease your mind forward into what the day holds and wish you hadn't, because it's a tough one. And eventually end up dragging yourself out of bed just because you have to. What difference would it make to have less of those days and more of the ones where you wake up feeling refreshed and ready for whatever the day's going to throw at you? And that might not be quite so impossible as it seems. My take on mental well-being is it's all to do with the balance between the total load that you're experiencing and the resources that you have for dealing with it. It's about looking after yourself to maintain that balance. Now, those loads are made up of your worries, anxieties, frustrations, upsets, anything that kind of gets under your skin and bothers you or mood hoovers away your energy. The resources are those that you have within yourself, but anything that you can access through other people as well. So that really supportive listener who's always there for you to talk things through with, or being able to get some help with something that you're a bit stuck with or you're struggling. As long as you maintain that balance, as long as the resources are always more than the load, you stay well. Now, of course, at the moment, a lot of those loads are ones that we can't do anything about. You might find that you've been really missing family or friends who you've not been able to see for ages, or a sport or favourite hobby that's been cancelled during restrictions. And of course, if you're trying to get that balance back, it makes sense to do something about getting rid of some of those loads. But when so many of them are ones that you can't do anything about, it's quite easy to end up stuck. Over the years, I've supported countless people who'd found themselves stuck and helped them to get past it, often a lot quicker and a lot more easily than they were expecting. See, when there's a lot of stuff that's in that pile of load, whether that's things that are bothering or upsetting or mood hoovering you, it's quite easy for all those little loads to kind of blend into each other, into this sort of formless mess of life not cooperating. We don't always take time to step back and look at what those loads actually are to enable us to work out what we can do about them. And that is a great place to start. So imagine that you could press pause on life, just for a few moments, just to enable you to take that step back and look at those loads one by one. What are they? Because even sometimes just putting your finger on what it is that's bothering you makes it shrink, makes it less scary, and starts to feel better. And as you look at those loads, it may be that the biggest, messiest ones are ones that you can't do anything about. So find one, just one for now, that you can. even if it isn't a really big disruptive load. Taking some action, even if you can't remove it, to reduce it, makes it feel better and frees up some of those resources for dealing more effectively with the rest of the load. And it puts your brain back into its most resourceful state. So you'll start to notice other things that you can do about other loads. And that stuck starts to ease, which feels so much better. Being able and willing to take action on any of that load makes you empowered. Able, willing, empowered. How much time are you spending? Awesome! Or how often does it tend to slip into more of a, oh, that's not quite right, and oh, I wish I didn't have to. Something to give a little bit of thought. Now, before we go on to exploring another way to help get past that stuck, let's look at a few ways that not being on top form might show up. Some of those early warning signals to keep an eye open for. When you've got a lot on the go, loads of different things competing for your attention, it's not as easy to stay focused on one thing at a time. And when something's bothering or upsetting you, new information doesn't go in as easily, and you're more likely to make mistakes. So everything takes longer to get done. When your resources are feeling stretched, you might find that little differences of opinion or simple misunderstandings are more likely to escalate into falling out with the people who you care about. And because decision making is quite demanding on those resources, when you feel that those resources are in short supply, you're more likely to put off important decisions or just go with whatever's easiest just to get it off your plate, neither of which is likely to be the best decision in the long run. And each of those things, the mistakes, the fallings out, the poor decisions, adds to the load even further, stretching your resources even more. It can really quickly start to become quite a vicious cycle that gathers its own momentum. And you might notice something else as well. As that cycle starts to build and the load starts to get out of balance, it often affects your sleep. Now, sleep is one of your body's most effective ways of topping up those inner resources. Amazing things happen when you sleep. So it's quite unfortunate that when you need those resources more than ever, when you need your sleep to be doing the best job that it possibly can in topping them up, is just when it's least likely to be. I think that's a bit of a flaw in evolution. Now, you might notice when you're feeling upset or down about something, that voice in your mind starts to go up a notch or two, starts to have rather a lot to say about whatever it is that's going on. Now, it makes sense logically, but there's a really big mistake that most people make in that situation. When that voice is saying stuff that isn't helping, you probably try to change what it's saying. Makes logical sense, but that voice isn't coming from the logical part of your thinking. So trying to argue with it, or discredit it, or reason with it, or even ignore it actually gives it more energy, and that can make it worse. Whether it's making it large with the criticism telling you that you're rubbish, or creating the disaster scenarios of everything that could possibly go wrong. You don't want to be giving that more energy. But what most people don't realise is that rather than trying to change what that voice is saying, it's often easier and a lot more effective to change how it sounds. Now, that might be something that you've never experimented with before. So let's get curious. Let's try a couple of ways to change that mind voice and see what happens. So I'd like you to choose something specific, anything for now that you want to feel better about. And when you think of that thing, notice that voice in your mind and notice how it sounds, how loud it's speaking, how fast it's speaking, and what kind of tonality it's using. And you might want to, if you want to, close your eyes so that you can really concentrate on that mind voice. And imagine that inside your mind you have the controls for that voice. Now, I don't know what they'll look like. They could look like the dials of a radio or sliders on a sound mixing desk or an app on your phone. But just get a sense of how your mind voice controls look and how they operate. And find the control for that voice's volume and turn it down. So that voice in your mind starts to get quieter and quieter, all the way down to a whisper. So quiet you can hardly even hear it, if you could be bothered. And notice how that feels. Now, next to the control for the volume, there's a control for that voice's speed. So keeping that voice at a whisper, let's start by speeding it up. So all the words bump and blend into each other, and it gets so fast that all the words become one sort of shh sound. And notice how that feels. Or you could try changing the speed in the other direction. Set it back to where it was when you started, and then start to make it slower, so that voice gets big gaps between words. And notice how that feels. Because I defy anyone to be able to worry really slowly. Now, those are just a couple of ways to change it. You can get creative. You can invite your imagination to come up with its own ways. If that voice in your mind was particularly judgmental or critical, how would it sound if you had a big red balloon full of helium that it breathed in? So all of a sudden it starts to talk like this. And if it's criticizing you in that kind of a voice, it's probably not going to have the same effect. Now, that's all very well when you've got a few minutes to sit by yourself and close your eyes and make the changes, but you can't always do that when you're right in the thick of a situation. So the way to get that to work at its absolute best is to train your brain to do it differently all by itself. And that happens by repetition. So you think of the thing that you want to feel better about, you notice that mind voice, you make the changes. You think of the thing, you notice the voice, you make the changes. You run through that cycle 4 or 5 times back to back really quickly, and your brain learns to do it by itself. It's like when you were little and you were first learning how to operate buttons and zips, how to get dressed. When you were learning about zips, you'd have had a zip in your hands. Just like you've had that actual thought that you're changing in your mind. And you'd have probably fiddled about with it a little bit until you found the best way to get it to work. And then you'd have fastened it and unfastened it and fastened it and unfastened it. And after a few goes, your brain goes, yeah, got that. You never pick up a hoodie now and go, how do these work? It's automatic. Imagine the difference it's going to make when your brain neutralizes an unhelpful thought that automatically. So it happens in the background before you've even realized it was there. So we've looked at your well-being being that balance between the total load and the total resources. We've looked at how to get unstuck by taking action on any of the loads, even if they're not the biggest or the messiest. We've looked at some of those early warning signs that perhaps that balance is slipping and you need to be a little bit kinder to yourself or do something a little bit differently. And we've looked at some of the ways to change that voice in your mind. So my challenge to you is today, this very afternoon, find something, one thing, that for you used to be an oh, and take action. Do something to make it awesome.
We got a poll.
I am called the SUMO guy, and you're looking at me, aren't you, going, where's your nappy? Where's your thong? I'm not that kind of sumo guy. So SUMO, it's an acronym, and it started off its life simply meaning this: shut up, move on. And some people love that phrase. SUMO, shut up, move on. I like that. And then some people go, I think that sounds rather aggressive. It's not meant to be aggressive, but the shut up bit is really just saying, hey, do what you're doing now. Take a bit of time out, stop, think, reflect, press, pause. Give yourself a little bit of time to think and to reflect and then to move on. Now, there were some people, though, because we started to do SUMO in schools, and the teachers were saying to me, we love your book, we love your ideas, the teachers love it. The parents, though, are asking the question. My son George just came home saying he did SUMO at school today. What is SUMO? And this head teacher said to me, I just felt a bit awkward saying it's an acronym. It stands for shut up, move on. George is 7. We're a primary school, and one of our values is show respect. And I don't think you show respect by telling people to shut up. So, Paul, I want you to change the title of your program. I went, Linda, it's my brand. It's my brand. I've spent flipping years developing it. You know what she said to me? I get that. But if you don't change, interesting line coming up here, if you don't change, I don't think we can use it anymore. I said, have you got an idea we could call it instead? She said, no. I said, thanks for the feedback. I had to go back and do some reflecting. I'm still known as a SUMO guy. We still use the phrase shut up, move on. But do you know what else we do now? And you might prefer this. Your parents might prefer it, your teachers. I don't know if you do. SUMO can now also stand for this. Stop, understand, move on. Which one do you prefer? Hey, so bit of a bonus for you. You're learning Latin at school, because if you're like me, you never flipping learned Latin at school. But I want to give you an added bonus. I'm going to give you a little Latin phrase, because SUMO, not just as an acronym, but as a word in Latin, guess what it means? I don't know, Paul. What does it mean? Thanks for asking. It means to choose. SUMO means to choose. And you know my mate Drew Povey, he says this: every day, Paul, is a Tuesday. CHOOSE. Every day is a Tuesday. So guess what? Every single day we're making choices, aren't we? But often without thinking, but they add up. They might seem insignificant, but actually they have consequences, and they can have good consequences or maybe not so good consequences. It's all about the choices we make. You've made a choice to listen to this, and I hope you're benefiting from doing so. Now, let me take you back in time. 13 years ago. It's the year 2008, and I am working in Australia. And I've just been working in Burnley, and now I was in Australia, and I've got a chance to meet one of my heroes. Now, he probably won't be a hero to you. In fact, he's no longer alive, which might be a bit of a problem anyway. But he was a bit of a hero for me. His name is Stephen Covey. And he'd written this, not COVID, Stephen Covey. And he'd written this book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It had done rather well. Do you know how many it had sold? So far, it's sold 30 million copies. Now, I've written a few books that have done all right, but they ain't reached anything like 30 million. Anyway, I get a chance to meet him. We're speaking at this conference. On day 2 of the conference, he's the opening speaker, and then I follow him on. And I'm so excited about a chance to meet him. And I decide, when I find out, though, as soon as basically he's finished his talk, he's going to be picked up in a limousine and driven away to meet Kevin Rudd. And you're all thinking, oh, yeah, Kevin Rudd. Well, that's understandable. Who the flipping heck is Kevin Rudd? Well, in 2008, he was the Australian Prime Minister. That's who Kevin Rudd was. So I'm not going to get a chance to meet Stephen Covey because he's got a flipping meeting with the Australian Prime Minister. So I'm thinking, right, what can I do? What can I do? I want to just have 5 minutes with him. Basically, I get into the auditorium. It's the Sydney Convention Centre. If you thought Stoke City's ground was impressive, wait till you see the Sydney Convention Centre. And there I am. I get down super early, around 6:30 in the morning, because I've got a cunning plan. And I'm convinced he'll be down early before all the delegates arrive, because he's bound to do a sound check, maybe check his slides, if he's showing any slides or videos. And I get there super early, and a few minutes later, he walks in. He checks his slides, he checks his video, he checks his sound. He's about to walk out, and I'm thinking, big moment, Paul, big moment. And I raise myself up to my full height of 5'7". I stride over towards him, thrust out my hand and go, Mr. Covey, I'm Paul McGee, the sumo guy. I'm speaking after you today. And he goes, nice to meet you. He said, sorry, the sumo guy. So I explained what the sumo means. And he goes, where are you from, Paul? I said, I'm from Manchester in England. He says, great, have you got your family with you? I said, no. He said, well, tell me a bit about your family. I'm going, oh, okay, fair enough. I said, I've got 1 wife and 2 children. What about you, Stephen? Because I'm calling him Stephen now, because we've known each other probably at least 3 minutes, so we're probably lifelong friends. And he said, Paul, I've got 1 wife like you, but then it kind of changes. He said, I've got 9 children. And get this, 52 grandchildren. That's what happens when you don't take out a Netflix subscription. Anyway, I asked him the question I was desperate to ask him, and I'm going to tell you what his answer was. I said, right, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, a rather successful book. I said, which of the 7 habits is most important? He said, they're all important. You've got to start with the first, Paul. And I'm like, yeah, you've got to start with the first. You've got to start with the first. I couldn't flipping remember what the first habit was. I think he senses my awkwardness, and he goes, be proactive. And I'm like, yeah, be proactive. He said, are you aware of it? Have you read the book? I said, oh yeah, I've read the book. He said, so you know about the circles? I said, I know about the circles. He said, can I just chat to you about them anyway? Because I love talking about the stuff. And I'm going, yeah, of course you can. Let me tell you what Stephen Covey said to me when we talked about the circles. So he said, Paul, drew these 2 circles. And this outer circle, he said, as you know, then, if you've read the book, he said, that's your circle of concern. That's the stuff that's out of your control. He said, in that inner circle, which I've colored in green, so I call this the green zone. That's what you can do something about. So this is what you can't control, and this is what you can control. He said, you know what's really interesting, Paul? He said, in life, people spend a lot of time focusing and talking and thinking about the stuff that they can't do anything about. You know, one of the things we can't do anything about is our past. I ran away from home at the age of 10. I had 4 different primary schools. But guess what? It's in my past. I can learn from it, but I don't want to live there. It's not like I can control what happened. It's over, isn't it? Sometimes you do need to literally go, I think I need to sumo on that one now, Paul, because it flipping happened 46 years ago when I ran away from home. I was only flipping missing a few hours, but it wasn't a great experience. My home life was an interesting life, but it's kind of in the past. There's nothing I can do about it. You know, I would love to be in a room with you guys now. Now, it might have to be a rather big room, but wouldn't it be great if we could be in person? People weren't having to wear masks. People weren't having to socially distance, all those kind of things. And I can't do anything about that because I don't know when that's going to happen. And here's a phrase I want to think about. What you focus on magnifies. What you focus on magnifies. And sometimes you know what people do? Parents do, family do, teachers do, we do, I do. We focus on what we can't do something about rather than focusing on what we can do something about. what I call the green zone. Is life always going to be perfect for you? Certainly not. But in life, because what is my SUMO guide? It's about giving you 4 ideas that are going to really help you. And one of them is focus on the green zone. This is what I had to do literally in the last few months. I had to focus on what I can control and influence, not what I can't do anything about. So I've written 12 books. My first 11 books were adult books. When I say adult books, I don't mean dodgy adult books. I mean books for adults. But my 12th one, which I'm super proud of, is called Yes, the SUMO Secrets Being a Positive, Confident Teenager, although it seems kids from the age of like 9 upwards are getting a load from it, and loads of parents and teachers are reading it as well, which is great. But a year ago, someone said something to me. They went, you know what, kids don't read these days. You'll never get kids to read. I said, why are you shaking your head like that? And I'm like, well, maybe they won't read this book if it looks like a really dull, boring book. But what's in my influence and in my control? Because the book was being written, but I thought we need to have a brilliant illustrator. That's something I can do something about. I can't control and convince everyone to read the book, but I can influence things a bit and think I need to make this probably the most visually appealing book that looks at things like positivity, confidence, anxiety, looks at dealing with challenge and change, looks at kind of like growing up through puberty and all those flipping hormones kicking around, looks at things like relationships. It's a good book, but it needs to be brilliantly illustrated. You know what I did in my green zone? I worked with the best illustrator I know. I made it, trying to make it fun, engaging, and use humor, use loads of color, engage. I've got kids who contact the office, so we contact them. We just wanted to do something within our green zone, which was good because we also found out when the book was coming out that the largest bookstore that sold most of my books previously, W.H. Smith's, they thought it was a great book, but they weren't going to stock it. Why not? You know Gareth Southgate, England manager? He had a book aimed at young people coming out at the same time. Now I remember Chris Hoyt, London 2012 Olympic Games, rides a bike rather fast. That's my impression of riding a bike rather fast, if you're a little bit confused. He also had a book coming out at the same time, W.H. Smith said, we can't have all these books aimed at kids on a similar topic, so we're not going to stop Paul McGee's. I was flipping gutted. But what can I do? You see, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. By the way, if you are on social media, if you want to ever follow me or let me know what you thought of this session, you can contact me at the SUMO Guy on Instagram and also at the SUMO Guy on Twitter. That's how you can connect with me if you want to, or get your parents or family to do so. And so I thought, okay, I've not got the book going in a bookstore. Yes, it'll be on Amazon, but you know, mates matter massively, don't they? So I sent my book to Dave Hyner, RHINO. And I said, it's SUMO, hello, RHINO. And I said, look, if you think this book's good, would you tell other people about it? Because I just want to get the word out there. We're not trying to raise money for ourselves. We're trying to raise money for a mental health charity and make a difference in young people's lives. I put stuff on Instagram. I put it on Twitter. What was I doing? I was taking control. I was taking responsibility. I wasn't saying, isn't life unfair? Pass me my t-shirt because I'm a victim, because I've got Gareth Southgate's book and Chris Hoyt's, but they're not going to go for mine. That's not going to help me get the most out of life. So I focused on my green zone. I got involvement. I asked for support. Oh, by the way, little phrase for you. Seeking support is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom. It's a sign that you are really smart. I talk about this in this book. Oh, I've written 11 books so far before this, my 12th. Some of the others have done all right. Do you know what? This is my fastest selling book ever. If I wanted to wear the yellow t-shirt and spend loads of time in this outer circle, that would not have happened in your life, in your studies, in your future. Always be aware this exists. Of course it does, but hey, it happens. Your green zone, the more you focus on that, the bigger it can become. Second idea for you that I think will be helpful, and it builds on what Sue's been talking about. And here's the question I want you to think about. Besides God, if you believe in God, who is perhaps the most important person you're ever going to talk to? I don't know. Who's the most important person? It's yourself, isn't it? And Sue's been talking about that voice inside your head. Well, here's a phrase I want you to think about. And you might be going, well, Sue just talked about this. Why do we need to hear it again? Look, all the speakers so far have talked about your attitude, your mindset, you know, those kind of things, the conversations inside your head. I use a slightly different word. but I always want to think about not just in your school years. And, you know, if you're a parent here today, think about it. If you're a teacher listening to this, think about it. It's really, really, really important. I want to build on what Sue said. Please check your chatter. Those conversations that are going on inside your head, because I'll tell you what, some of those conversations aren't useful. And Sue gave you maybe some ideas on how to sort of like think about it, but here's me building on it. You know, I think that one of the voices inside our head, I like to call it your inner critic. It's like that red boxing glove, you know, highlights your weaknesses, undermines your confidence. You know, and you know, oh, well, I failed. You know, when it was mentioned before that Claire, she got to the final of The Apprentice, 40,000 people applied. She got to the last two and she didn't win. And she said, so I failed. Well, you kind of failed. I mean, I would consider that a success. 11 million people watching you on TV, recognizing you. But I suppose it's all about how you frame things, isn't it? You know, it's like you've probably heard this phrase before, but when you make a mistake, when things don't go right, you don't get things right straight away. Failure, it's not it's an event, isn't it? It's not, it's my identity. Hello, I'm a failure. Nice to meet you. No, it's an event. F-A-I-L. It was a first attempt in learning. Let me tell you, for me, at times, F-A-I-L isn't first attempt in learning. It's fifth attempt in learning. But as a result, maybe I get better, I get stronger, I get a little bit wiser, a bit more knowledgeable. As you know, life is sometimes about a struggle. What do you mean it's about a struggle? Make my life easy. Sorry, it ain't going to be easy. Sometimes it's a game of snakes and ladders. And guess what happens sometimes? You land on the snake. Now you can check out your chatter and go, oh, I'm always unlucky. I'm always landing on snakes. Things never work out for me. Or you can put down the glove. You can go a bit easier on the boxing glove and say, I'm still in the game here. I landed on a snake. But the only way I'm going to win this is not to quit, but is to roll the dice again and look for the ladders. You check your chatter, folks. Third idea for you. So you've got the green zone, you've got check your chatter. Go easy on the boxing glove, that inner critic. I'm going to put a word up here. And the word is beach ball. Okay, so I'm going to show you a beach ball. Oh, Paul, that's very impressive. Where are you speaking from? Is it from Rio de Janeiro? Is it from Benidorm? Is it from Lanzarote? No, it's from Warrington, actually. But I want you to think about this beach ball for a moment, because we're looking at the same thing, aren't we? Just like with your mates, you're sometimes discussing things. You're talking about football, you're talking about music, you're talking about teachers, you're talking about subjects, you're talking about, you know, boyfriends, girlfriends, or whatever you're talking about. Maybe even get into politics sometimes. And here's the thing I want you to think about. And if you're a parent, I want you to be very, very focused on what I'm about to say. And if you're a teacher as well, we're looking at the same thing, aren't we? And yet you're seeing red, yellow, and orange. So you're thinking that's it. If someone said to you, what colour's the beach ball? It's red, yellow, and orange, because that's what you see. Guess what? I'm looking at the same thing as you. But I don't see red, yellow, and orange. You know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing blue, white, and green. No, you're not, Paul. It's red, yellow, and orange. Oh, no, it isn't. Oh, yes, it is. Hey, you know what? We need to think about our relationships and our conversations with people. And we need to sometimes shut up thinking that our perspective is the only perspective there is, and just move on, move on. Sometimes to see where other people are coming from, because guess what? We haven't all got a monopoly on the truth. I think parents sometimes need to have beach ball conversations with their kids. I think kids need to sometimes be aware of where parents are at and maybe understand some of their issues and some of their challenges. Oh, and by the way, just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean they dislike you. They maybe just see things differently from you at times, and that's good. That's about diversity. You don't want everyone to say, well, the world is just these three colours and that's what it is. No, it's much richer and more colourful than that. Oh, and by the way, you know when you chat to somebody and you just see things differently from each other, rather than spending loads of time trying to think that, well, I'm right, you're wrong, and let it escalate and get into conflict, maybe we need to just appreciate sometimes maybe we could both be right. Maybe we could both be right. Who in your world do you perhaps need to have a beach ball conversation with? Understand what's going on in their world, and then maybe explain what's going on in your world as well. So you've got your green zone, you've got check that chatter, go a bit easier on the boxing glove, and you've got remember the beach ball. Don't forget your beach ball. Final thought. I'll express it in the form of a story. The spring of 2004, I felt pregnant. You're a bloke, Paul. How can you be pregnant? No, I mean, I felt pregnant with a kind of a birth of an idea I wanted to do. I wanted to write a book called SUMO. Here's what the largest publisher in the UK thought of my idea. I have to say my reaction to your title isn't very positive. I'm not convinced that Shut Up, Move On, seen on the front of a book in a bookstore, is going to make the majority of people think, I must have that. It wouldn't make me want to buy it as it's quite aggressive, and I don't particularly like being told to shut up. And I'm a northerner, her words, not mine. I'm a northerner. I think more sensitive southerners might be turned off by this even more. I thought, come off the fence, tell me what you really think. Green zone, how can I influence and improve the situation? I convinced her to meet me. And she did, and I thought she was warming to my idea, and she came back to me a week later, and she said, I've spoken now to other colleagues. Their reaction was similar to mine. A book title has to work from the outset, and Paul, yours doesn't. Okay, so it's a fail, isn't it? But you know what I did? I just tried to sort of like contact a few more publishers, and there was a bit of consistency in their feedback. No, 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 no. No, I got a further 12 no's. And a mate of mine, because mates matter massively, right? Remember that. A mate of mine just said, Paul, I love your SUMO ideas. I think they could help a lot of people. And he just said to me 3 words. Something to think about this for yourself in your future, wherever you're at, whatever your age. Sometimes we don't get that instant success. You know, the door doesn't seem to open, but guess what? Be prepared to push more doors because you only need one to open. Finally, a door opened. The book came out in 2005. It's kind of like the mum or the dad of the Yes book. Do you know what? This became a Sunday Times bestseller. Woo-hoo! But if I hadn't had the support of other people, if I hadn't been prepared to persist, if I decided to quit too quick because I'm a loser and no one likes my stuff, it would never have happened. So folks, green zone thinking, focus on what you can do, not on what you can't do, including your past. It's over. Check the chatter. Who do you need to have a beach ball conversation with? And in life, if you get a setback, make it into a comeback. Push more doors. If you thought this was a really enjoyable session, then my name is Paul McGee, the SUMO guy. If you thought this was the worst flipping session of the whole conference so far, my name is David Hyner, RHINO. Hey folks, hope you've had a great day. Enjoy the event on the 17th if you're going to be there. Take care. I'm SUMO. Shut up, move on, stop, understand, move on. And make sure you make some good choices. Cheers, guys. And back to Dave.
Okay, welcome back. It only serves for me to tell you about what's coming up on the 17th of March. We've got 4 more awesome speakers for you. We've got Sharon and Mesu, who overcame incredible challenge and adversity to become a lawyer, and now she's an awesome female role model. We've got Darren Harris, one of the most highly awarded and medalled blind athletes, visually impaired athletes, represented Britain in athletics, judo, and something else that I can't remember. Football, that was it. He's the world's most capped blind footballer. The guy is awesome. We've got Cash Gill. His fighting name is Cash the Flash. Not 1, not 2, not 3, 4 times world kickboxing champion for you. The guy is a living legend. And then we've got Haroon Rabbani, a well-being expert again for you. So we've got a fantastic lineup. Question is, are you going to be there? Are you going to be a bit, it's up to you, of course. But set a massive goal. Let's go, RHINO. See you on the 17th of March. Let's today thank all the team from Eternal Iris for all the tech. Mike Whittingham from Trentham Academy. Let's thank our speakers. Best-selling author Paul McGee. Well-being expert Sue Evans. We've got Ben Dyer from the Inspirational Learning Group. And, of course, Claire Young from School Speakers. Q3, SASGAL, Higher Horizons Plus, City Learning Trust, Aspire Higher, Stretch Development, and, of course, Trentham Academy. My friends, do you know, with individual schools, we've had somewhere between 5 and 30,000 staff, parents, and students watching this session. The only thing that remains now is for you to make a decision. So are you going to set a massive goal and go, RHINO, Or is today just another day? I will conclude with the two most powerful words in the English language. I met a young lady who was told that she was going to die before the age of 21. She was 14 years of age. She had a metal pole fused to her neck and spine, and she was told she'll never leave hospital. She did die young, but way past the age of 21. And in that time, she got 2 degrees at university, living away from home. She started a business. She won a Paralympic silver medal, gold medal, 2 world records, and was given an MBE by the Queen at Buckingham Palace. Whenever she was told, "You can't do that," she smiled, and in her head, she said, "You do not determine what I'm capable of achieving, yeah? I decide." So from now on, my friends, take control of those negative assumptions. Start finding out what's true. And above all else, set a massive goal. Go RHINO, and we'll see you on the 17th. I've been David Hyner, unless you've not liked it, in which case, I'm Superman. Have a great rest of your day. Cheers.